I want to define what I mean by silence. I keep talking about the need to go into the silence, and some may think I mean a place of no sound. So allow me to define it clearer. What it really means is an inner quiet. Mind stops chattering about the world. Feelings quiet down and express gratitude. Body senses nearly cease, and equanimity pervades throughout the physical structure. This is the silence I speak of. You hear sounds still around you. You can even function in the world just fine while in this state, but the inner quiet is maintained. This is the state which increases receptivity to divine guidance 100-fold. It is here all inner teaching can happen with ease. When this state can remain unbroken for long periods of time, a momentum is achieved. And even if one gets distracted for a time, they will snap back to this place without struggle. This is true for the fully awakened, most certainly, since the state of silence is a mandatory requirement of full awakening. It becomes automatic. It's a bit like watching the movie of life, happening around you, while remaining insulated in a protective capsule of light and peace. It's a unique mixture of detachment and intimate involvement simultaneously. And here, in this silence, will your personal voice of truth lead you onward with a compelling certainty that resonates every fiber of your being. This is how it distinguishes itself from the outer world chatter. There is just no comparison. One voice ignites a fire of universal purpose and clarity, and the other instills uncertainty, fear, anxiety, and is always dwelling on needs of the body and societal conformity. At some point, you must choose. Ye cannot serve two masters. Many on the early path find themselves vacillating between the two, but at some point it becomes clear that a firm decision must be made. The entire key to making the decision is to have the necessary honesty of introspection and foresight to discern the difference of outcomes being proffered. So, how many have heard the term the middle way? Most understand the idea of wolves and sheep, the wolves being the predators in life and the sheep being the victims. The middle way shines a light on both as willful states of ignorance. The wolves misuse life by taking advantage of the populace, by making and using legal decree to suppress freedom of every kind. And the sheep are just as guilty for being naive and spineless. Being a rapist of a nation or a blind onlooker are identical states of perversion of being. Both have strayed from the middle way. You can see this tension manifest in our country of the United States today. You have one side being the wolves in positions of government, drug companies, oil and military-based corporations, to name a few, just creating an endless stream of frivolous law and manipulation as a means of self-destructive greed. The people of the nation, being the sheep and mostly being asleep at the wheel, fall for the trap of divisive manipulation being sewn into the fabric of the country. Through control of media and narrative, the wolves weave so much falsehood into the consciousness of the ignorant that they have no concept left, no concept of reality left in their minds to find and anchor to. And so the result is exactly as we see today, a people taking sides and at each other's throats over a grand delusion. And rightfully so, a very small portion of the populace is arming themselves in expectation of a coming fight to the death for the freedoms that the Ascended Ones inspired to be written into the Declaration of Independence in the original unadulterated Constitution. By saying this, I am not supporting violence or civil war, but merely making an effort to define the tension we see manifest here in our country. That there is a portion of the populace that feel within the need to prepare to defend the integrity of the nation from a government that is in the process of going rogue. And this has nothing to do with either side of the aisle. It is both political parties. For those of you who are not aware of the divine reason why the Second Amendment was inspired to be written into the Constitution, you only need to look at the present moment. Those great ones knew well in advance the treachery that would most certainly find its way into human expression. It's only natural for a nation founded on the highest principles to be severely tested as it slowly proceeds from inception into maturity. Right now, our nation is still likened to a 12-year-old, just starting to become aware of its potential, but still very awkward and struggling to cope with all kinds of new feelings. It will probably be 1,000 years before this nation comes fully into its own, but it will happen. It has been decreed. But until then, time will tell if we have to go down another path of bloodshed, or if the wolves and sheep can be illumined enough through pressure of the light to simmer down. Both paths will ultimately lead to the same conclusion. It's just one is less painful and traumatic. Whichever it be, something needs to happen. From my perspective, it's hard to fathom the deceit and mismanagement of this country getting worse. It's hard to fathom the disgusting manipulation of politics from all political parties getting any worse. A return to the middle way is needed, the place where sanity is restored and harsh feelings tempered, the place where wolves see the vain foolishness of their raping of a nation and their brethren, a place where the sheep take their blindfolds off, straighten their spines, and empower themselves with knowledge of self-worth. And for all sides to rediscover the powerhouse of purpose this nation could become when a humble return to acknowledgement of our great source of being is again recognized. Remember, we don't condemn our own children for having the natural experience of evolving from baby to adulthood and all the processes involved therein. Let us not condemn our nation, so recently conceived, as unredeemable. It is probably not a coincidence that Earth is an anagram of heart, and America is an anagram of I am race. The middle way is the path all great ones have taught. It is a very narrow path between the dark forest that presses in from both sides. But it can be found and followed. But to do so requires unwavering attention. To have unwavering attention requires understanding of all things. The understanding of all things requires time in the silence. Time in the silence requires being less busy. Being less busy requires acknowledging that you know nothing, and therefore will naturally seek the source of all knowledge in order to humbly listen to its instruction. It is the only way to return to sanity for individual and nation. The middle way is not a state of inaction or indifference. On the contrary, it is the state of being where true, authentic power is made manifest again in the worthy. It's a state of being, of complete emotional control, where all feeling that issues from you is purposeful and used correctly. Those that find and adhere to the middle way will fulfill the words of Jesus and do greater things than he, eventually. It's a state of being where the power of your thought, feeling, and spoken word are fully acknowledged and used only in the service to the light. And last but not least, as a determined adherence to the simple but powerful principle, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You know, there's a great, or what I feel is a great, honest representation in the fresco that was painted by Mycology. The creation of Adam, I think it's called. You know, the famous one where Adam's and God are almost touching fingers. You can Google it if you've never seen it. But there's something very, very interesting captured in that picture. I think is really apropos. If you take note, and it makes me think, it's like, I wonder if the artist did this intentionally because he knew, or if it just happened this way and he didn't really know, but he was, following inspiration. But any which way, if you take notice of the positions of the two, of Adam and God in that painting, you'll notice that Adam is reclining and God is almost straining. Just take notice of that. Adam is reclining and God is straining. If you look at, then take notice of their two arms coming together. Adam, his arm is out extended in a manner like he's just kind of, barely making effort. And God's fingers are outstretched, almost straining to make contact. Okay? To me, that is a absolute perfect example of how life is. There's so much in my mind and feeling, there's so much captured in that moment, in that painting. Because, and this goes hand in hand with the process of awakening, is that mankind is so lazy. But if you make a minimal effort, such as captured in this painting by Adam, God will do the rest, or life will do the rest. The great source of light will make the contact with you. And that holds true for all of mankind's progress, is that you don't have to go all the way, but you do have to make the effort and commitment and gain a momentum. And then the light will bridge that final gap. And you never know when it's going to happen. But when it does, and I'm just sharing this because it came to mind. Actually, it came to mind many days ago. And I was talking to my brother about this painting. Actually, that was almost a month ago. Actually, I was talking to him about this painting because I had that realization when I looked at it going, there's so much captured in that moment. But talking about the Dharma of singularity and my personal journey, and probably all great seekers' journey, is, you're going to make the efforts and you're going to create conditions. You strain to create the proper conditions for these things to occur. And then the light, or God, or whatever you call it, will make the final effort to bridge that gap for you, because it is doing this. It is straining. Life strains to have us understand. It thirsts, well, if it can't thirst, but you know what I mean? It just, the longing of the light to have its children come home, and the full understanding is so immense. It will do everything in its power to assist, but we must create the conditions, the welcoming. We have to clean ourselves, purify ourselves of all content that is in opposition to its coming and to visit us. So anyway, I just wanted to share that little pondering I had about that painting by Michelangelo. I hope you'll see it too.